A business can look perfectly normal from the outside, right up until a dispute exposes everything that was unclear. Who owns what? What was agreed to? Who had authority? And what was actually documented? What happens when a handshake, a verbal understanding, or a messy process suddenly has real money attached to it? And we are starting to see these stories get national attention right now. Not because every business dispute is dramatic, but because when legal infrastructures are weak, operational problems can become public, expensive, and very hard to unwind. Today, we are talking about why businesses wait too long to build legal infrastructure and why the best time to fix it is before there is a problem. Let's start it up. Hello, and welcome to Stack and Startup Baltimore, where we talk with founders, operators, builders, and business leaders about the realities behind building something that lasts. Today, I'm joined by Shavon Smith of the SJS Law Firm. Shavon works with entrepreneurs and small businesses on contracts, entry formation, employment matters, compliance, and proactive legal strategy. Shavon, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing excellent this morning. Thank you very much for having me on your show.
The cold open was a little nod to something that's been in the news lately. Have you seen about that bricks and minifigures issue?
No, I have not heard about that issue at all. Please, I would love to learn more.
Oh, it is. Unfortunately, it's going to take like a long time to go over, but basically, it was this guy had a consignment to a bricks and minifigures location.
Okay.
They tried to close the location tried to close it down. Corporate would took over, another company then tried to take over, and now there's accusations of theft in the tune of up to $200,000, but the value might be it honestly, from everything that I've personally seen, it has a potential to be in legal textbooks for generations to come.
Oh,
This is like a
wow.
yeah, I definitely encourage you to look into it because it's a mess, but the biggest takeaway that a lot of analysts, even the ones that are getting things wrong, the biggest takeaway that a lot of people are saying is everybody should have contacted a lawyer like a lot sooner.
That's very typical. People often wait to the very last minute to get legal counsel involved, and certainly their issues could be alleviated. And, it probably wouldn't have made them go away, but they would have had a path forward sooner had they had legal counsel.
Yeah, absolutely. I thankfully haven't had too much legal issues that I've needed to work on. The last time I dealt with a lawyer directly was during a living will issue or
Okay.
living trust issue, I should say. And it's because I was estranged from my family. I wasn't expecting anything from the estate, and yet I wanted to make sure that I was protected, and so I spent way too much money on a retainer for a simple, yeah, go ahead and sign it. But to have that extra assuredness that I wasn't getting screwed over, it was worth the little bit of extra money.
And I think that's how it goes with legal fees. It's often something that people think is incredibly expensive, but it costs more if you didn't do it. You usually end up paying more than the money you would have spent on getting good guidance early on. So certainly it's an opportunity to shop around and find pricing that works for you. But it may not necessarily be cheap. And there are a lot of resources that one can use to help with kind of affordable legal services, but it's almost one of those like pay a little bit now or pay a lot later situations.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the concerns. Like, I need to put all this investment, but there's certain you're not sure. There's unclarity as to like procedures, and then I also think that there's a little bit of media bias
Mhm.
People who watch TV or movies have this idea about legal representation, or this misidea of legal representation.
I think you're right. I think media, TV, social media certainly gives people maybe not a full understanding of what it means to be represented, what it means to work with an attorney, especially for a business owner. Obviously, your experience with an attorney may be very different if you're hiring them because you're going through a messy divorce versus if you're hiring them because you have a business that's growing. It may just be, a different experience for you because of how they're coming into your life.
I absolutely agree with that. So what do you think is some of the, other than waiting way too long, what
Mhm.
do you think is one of the most expensive legal mistakes that founders potentially make early?
I would say just not getting it in writing. I think if you have a partner kind of over oversimplifying that step of saying we're partners, we will be 50-50, we like each other, we trust each other. So what often happens is people will have some sort of partnership agreement, but it will never really cover everything that it should, or really what's pertinent in that situation, because maybe they got the most basic document to say that they had a document, whether their bank needed it or they were going through some process, as opposed to really sitting down and thinking about what it meant to be in a partnership, what each person will bring to the table, how much money, how much effort. So I would say that that's a big mistake people make early on, and it's not even just with business partners, it's with customers and clients, just not getting things in writing and spending time thinking about the implications of, what if this does go wrong, what should this look like in writing.
Okay, awesome. And on that business partnership, because some partnerships may have more trust than others, do you see problems like that crop up more in like family businesses, or businesses where it's a friend type of situation, versus some people that have just a shared idea of what that partnership would be?
I think it's interesting. I think I've seen family members, sorority sisters, cousins. Like I've seen people who you would think, well, they should be able to work through this, not be able to work through it. So it almost doesn't matter. And sometimes two strangers coming together, maybe because they are not that acquainted with each other, they're going to be extra cautious about the partnership, the documentation, talking through the partnership than some people who are more familiar with each other. And I would say when it comes to families, like I feel like that's its own whole thing, like family owned businesses, succession for family businesses, especially when perhaps parents started something and there are multiple siblings that all maybe work in the business. Like what does that look like, passing that on to the children? Like that's a whole other family psychology legal thing. So I think that also creates a whole other set of problems that have to be carefully explored with, good counsel as well.
Yeah, kind of like the whole mentality, like, oh, my brother Joe won't screw me over. We're gonna have to see each other at Thanksgiving, and boy, is that gonna be awkward.
Yeah, and it might not even be Joe. It may be Joe's partner that is
Right.
driving some of that, or Joe. Even though you and Joe kind of come from the same background, one of you is just in a better financial position than the other. So they're making decisions based on that financial position, and you're making your decisions based on something else. Like you just kind of come with different motivations, and that certainly shows up.
I will say that I was super lucky in when my mom tried to start her own business many years ago. I co-signed on with a business credit card,
Hmm.
and unfortunately, the business started to go belly up, for multiple different reasons. One, she wasn't able to put enough time and effort into it because she was then also being a caregiver, which puts a lot of stress in any direction.
Absolutely.
And I did notice that that credit card was having some issues on it. Now, she was able to when she sold her portion of the business. Like, I wasn't a partner, I was just a co-signer at that point.
Okay.
She was able to pay off that card, and so the credit hit to me was minor, but it could have gone real bad real fast.
Absolutely.
So and no lawyers were involved in that one, and I was, like I said, I was super lucky in that situation. Not a lot of people are.
No, you're right. The banking and credit and co-signing, I've certainly, see things happen. And access to credit and banking is a big issue for a lot of small businesses. So being able to access capital, and then what happens if, maybe things are tight and you're not able to make those payments as needed.
Yeah. And I mean, that's no joke, because that affects you, for many, many years to come.
Hmm.
So, like, what is a preventable situation that you see repeated more often?
Since we're talking about banking and financing and borrowing money, I will say, waiting too long to ask for help. Your bank typically, if you borrowed money for them, they probably have access to your financials. They probably have access to your bank accounts, like they kind of see your deposits. So having a good relationship with your banker and picking up the phone and saying, we need to restructure this loan, or here's what's happening with our receivables, or here's what's happening with our other debt. Because at the end, the bank just wants their money. And so they are going to be willing to work with you typically to get that if you are upfront with them. And I would say I often see people wait too long to have those conversations with their lenders and creditors, but also with their vendors. I work with clients who I'm their lawyer. I sent them a bill. They have been honest with me about where they may be financially. And that way we're able to work something out as opposed to just waiting until someone sues you because you didn't pay them for 2 months, but you also didn't have a conversation with them about why you didn't and when you planned on paying. So I would say just not communicating with people is certainly creates a lot of preventable problems.
I do think that that can potentially be a risk, and also cause a little bit of fear for some people, especially if, like, in a court case or in my living trust situation, I was sent a bill after the fact saying that my retainer was not enough to cover some of the legal things that they did, and I didn't really see anything about phone calls, or most of what I saw was reading a document, and part of me was just like, well, how long did it take you to read this? I think it was a 10-page document, and most of it was just kind of like boilerplate stuff, which I
Mhm.
know you have to read all that carefully, even still. But it's just like, I gave you X retainer that's supposed to cover these amount of hours, and you're just, what really happened. But at the end of the day, they also know how much money you got from the settlement, from the, and it's like, well, I can't claim financial hardship when I won. You know, some people may think they're being taken advantage at that point.
Mhm.
Like how
Yeah, I mean that's an opportunity to shop around when you're buying legal services like you do for anything else.
Okay.
So, this sounds like there was some sort of estate planning issue. That's certainly a lot of people do that on a flat fee basis. So it sounds like this may have been something that you could have found counsel that could do this on a flat fee basis. So you have some certainty in your legal fees. Or it's an opportunity to have a conversation with someone about what your legal budget is, and that if they can see themselves getting closer to that budget, to pick up the phone and tell you before they go over that budget. So certainly you have a good understanding of a person's billing practices and how they price and bill work, when you're retaining those services.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those situations where, again, I'm a layman coming into that whole type of situation. And so trying to figure out, I mean, obviously, I'm not asking you for advice because that situation is as well since passed, and any type of trying to recover any, I don't even care about that. I'm like I said, this is more for like people who have these kind of fears. So I'm not saying like, oh, all lawyers are bad because I had this one experience that had me question. That is not what I'm saying in any way, shape, or form. Um, but these are genuine fears that I think people have, and what causes some people to delay when they should act. So where do you think operational systems quality create legal exposure?
I think operating system, kind of having systems helps create um what's the word I want to use? They create consistency. And that certainly helps with alleviating legal issues. Like you kind of do the same things over and over. You have a process. And so you know where things break down. So legally, you bring in a customer, you know exactly the steps you take every time so that you can always go back and audit whatever will be done. So when you don't do that, you certainly create windows of opportunity for things to go wrong, on which always can create legal risks for a business. So, you want to have a system in place for onboarding customers, especially onboarding employees, so that there is just consistency in terms of everybody getting the same documents, everyone getting the same information, everyone understanding the same rules and policies about their job, so that there aren't any gaps there. So, certainly, just the concept of being systematized and having operations just creates consistency, which helps closes gaps that can create legal issues.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's definitely where it can get exposures and all that. And when it comes to things like contracts, I mean, obviously the importance is to read all the words, including the fine print that everybody, it's like
Mhm.
make sure you read that. But what do you think every business should understand about contracts before they even sign?
I think having a good contract means you also have to understand your business, because you need to have a sense of what terms make sense. Like how quickly can you really do something? How long can you go without payment? What sort of guarantee can you provide for your service or product that you're providing? So I think the first step of good contracting is certainly understanding your business and making sure that your legal counsel also understands your business as well. And the big parts of a contract, you want to make sure it clearly spells out what you're doing, whatever that may be, again, whether it's a product or service, and what you're doing. So that could be duration, time, the quality of what you're doing, a description of what that may be. So having a real strong sense of what's the scope of what we're engaging in. Certainly, payment is another important term about contracts, not just how much, but when are you getting paid? What happens if someone pays late? Is there some sort of late penalty? What forms of payment does a person accept? Does it have to be cash? Does it have to be, wire transfer? So that's another big important part of the contract as well. Dispute resolution. So what happens if this all goes wrong? Where do we take our dispute? Do we have to mediate our dispute? If we go to court, where do we have to go to court? And then also managing this concept of kind of managing ideas. So intellectual property. So even if you think there's not some big IP involved in what you're doing, like your name, your customer list, how you do something, those are all, things that are your intellectual property. You want to make sure that your contracts protect those things as well.
Yeah, we've also been seeing a lot about third-party arbitration. That a lot of
Hmm.
contracts seem to be pushing off that risk, so that a company, so the main person who's started that contract is trying to protect themselves, and I get that,
Hmm.
but there's been a lot of pushback thinking that that third-party arbitration is a way to kind of sidestep the legal process. What do you feel about that?
So arbitration is the legal process. So arbitration typically involves, sometimes you may have a panel of three arbitrators, sometimes you have one. It's a private body. Examples are American Arbitration Association, JAMS. There are a bunch of kind of organizations that are private mediator organizations, or you can hire a mediator. You typically are paying the mediator to be there to decide the dispute. You it will generally be binding arbitration, meaning that the parties have to be bound to the decision. And so, what's really there are reasons to use arbitration. So, if you are in construction or some other specialized area, even maritime law, it means that you get to pick a person to solve your dispute who probably has some specialization in what you're doing. Because if you go to a judge, I always say, your judge is hearing your sophisticated business dispute, and that morning they had to sentence somebody for, a misdemeanor crime. Like depending on the court that you're in, our judges are certainly doing lots of things and certainly very, very capable of doing them. But if you're having something very specialized, like some big technical architecture thing, sometimes you may want a person with a lot of experience to adjudicate that. Another reason why people arbitrate is timing. Courts, our judges are are overworked, and kind of things can get backed up. The arbitration process tends to move a little bit quicker. The parties have control over a little bit more of the timing and process, and things that happen. So I always say, while it is outside of the judicial system, it is still part of the legal system. And parties can certainly, you would agree to that in your contract, that, you arbitrate. You typically want to be clear about how many arbitrators, where the arbitrator may be, who the arbitrating body that you may want to choose to solve your dispute. So it really depends on the dispute, maybe how much is that issue. If the contract is for 20, 30, 40, $50,000, arbitration may not necessarily make sense, because I always say, you go to arbitration, you're paying all the lawyers, you're paying the arbitrator, and you're paying your lawyers that are representing you. Your courts are there because you're a tax-paying citizen. And while you have to pay to file a complaint, your judges, you do not pay your judge to hear your dispute. So I think it's one of those areas where you might not want to have hard and fast rules about yes or no to arbitration. You might want to think about exactly what you're doing, who the parties are, and then make a decision on if that makes sense for a dispute in that particular arrangement that you're going into.
Yeah, I like with a lot of legal issues, and I've watched quite a bit of Legal Eagle just because he's fun to watch and all that. Uh,
Yes.
and a lot of answers that he gives and that lawyers give that seems a little kind of unsatisfying for the layman is the "it depends," because in fact it depends. And I do
Yes.
I also want to key in a little bit the thing that you said when as soon as you said maritime law, immediately my brain went to all those sovereign citizen or American national type of personalities that try to fight a case with legalese jargon without actual backing, and I always find those fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things, you learn a couple legal words and people throw them around completely out of context, and they don't really mean anything when you do that.
All those Facebook lawyers that are out there
Exactly.
with their
Exactly.
uh print, this one weird trick, print this out and put it on your car, and it's in no way in shape a legal type of tag. And why are you taking my plate? It's
Right.
like you can just print off another one, don't even worry about it.
Right. Right. Or the notices they tell people to put on their Facebook page, all the things. Yes.
Oh, I'm glad that those have been dying down because I do see them, and it's like, my friend, you agreed to a terms of service which is going to supersede that. It's going to have that third party
Yeah.
arbitration clause.
Yes. You cannot override the terms of service that you are agreeing to by using the service. Yes.
I mean, me personally, I would love to one line some of those terms of services, but unfortunately, because of how those documents are able to kind of morph over time with very little knowledge, because they put in a blurb like, "Hey, terms and services, subject to change." It's one of those like weird oddities that why even bother reading the Apple terms of service because they're just going to change
I
them, right?
know. Yeah. And they do give you notice because they're obligated to provide notice that
Yes.
they've changed them. But it's like you're trying to get into your phone and something pops up and you're just like, I'm just trying to get into my phone. So yes.
Let me get my apps. So,
Yeah.
going back to the business side of thing, I do I just wanted to have that little aside there. But so what do you think separates businesses that scale cleanly from a business that is consistently trying to fight fires, whether it's in the legal system or adjacent to it?
I think it's just what you said earlier about systematizing things and processes. I think that's a big part of scaling. I think delegating and having other people is a big part of scaling. Like you shouldn't be your own lawyer. You should, hire people for that. Um, so I think delegating and just kind of bringing on help as much as possible. Those are the things that sometimes hold people back from being able to scale their business, because you can't do it all. And when you are a small business and you start out, you typically are going to be wearing lots of hats. But if you want to grow, you need to bring more people into the fold to take things off of you. So that you're focusing on the highest and best use of your time as a business owner. And for a lot of business owners, that may be going out and getting other business.
Yeah, absolutely. My primary business, not this podcast, is SD
Mm.
Tech, and currently I'm a solopreneur. It's just me and a bunch of Chat GPT
Hmm.
employees that I've
Yeah,
built, and there are some struggles with that. Mostly having to tell Chat GPT exactly what its roles are every so often, but
yeah,
uh yeah, I definitely agree. Like, I don't want to be a solopreneur for forever. I do
yes.
want to obviously grow my business. I do want to have people brought into here and that can help build my business and whoever works under me into better situations than when they first come in. That's one of my personal things. And yeah, I think that once you start getting more and more people involved, that yeah, I'm going to have to definitely up my legal game. Now I do have certain protections already that are just built into the franchise system, but at some point I know I'm going to need more.
I think it's important what you said about using technology. I think that's an important part of scaling as well as leveraging, all sorts of things, whether that thing is other people or that thing is people to help multiply you. And I think that's an important part of scaling as well.
Absolutely. And on that technology aspect, what are some like tools and workflows that save you or save other people in the legal industry time in their operations?
Yeah, I mean, certainly AI, right? Like, so the case management system that I use has an integrated AI that I can use for research just to help us get more thorough answers, quicker answers to things to help us draft documents as well. So that's an important resource for us. Our law firm is virtual, so being able to communicate with people via like we use Google Chat, being able to use tools like Asana to manage projects. So just really integrating all of those things to run our virtual law firm.
Yeah, definitely not things like Chat GPT, because there's a gaming issue out there where a studio owner was using Chat GPT for legal advice to get the
Hmm.
developers to fire the developers. He was very much caught, went through a bunch of situations, and now he has to pay up, I think, like 250 million per developer, and I think there's like three
Wow.
of them. But I mean, 250 million, that's no small change there. Um,
No small change.
yeah, and I mean, because the sales of this particular game were so high, and that all of a sudden you're like, oh no, I now need to pay this type of money, and he really kind of messed himself up by using ChatGPT. And there was another one during the pandemic. I'm sure you saw this one where somebody was using a filter in a courtroom Zoom meeting. Do you remember that one?
I don't think I recall that, but I've seen it all.
So during the pandemic, there was a lawyer who came in on a Zoom meeting and had some type of filter on where they were a cat. And the whole famous thing was like,
Oh, yes. Yes. I'm a cat. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, Your
Yes.
Honor, I assure
I
you,
do
I'm
recall
I'm
that.
not a cat. You know, it's, so I mean, we
Yeah.
definitely have seen where the technology messes up not only on the legal aspect, but there's also sometimes an embarrassment if you don't fully understand the technology. I personally think that an AI that is able to scour books can definitely help look at actual cases. It's when they start hallucinating
Mhm.
cases, which we have also seen in multiple aspects from, again, those type of sovereign citizen American national type of situations all the way up to the federal government. And I think that it can be a tool, but it's also something that has been very dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, I think that technology is important, but it's one of those you don't know what you don't know. So even when LegalZoom and Rocket Lawyer came, those were important tools to give people access to legal services. But if you don't know the right questions to ask, you may not get the right output because you didn't put the right input. And I think certainly AI is the same way, a very powerful and important tool, but you still have to be able to evaluate, you still have to be able to ask it the right questions, you still have to be able to um kind of understand the nuances. And so even when I get contracts that I can tell are drafted by AI, there's still work on our end that needs to be done to probably tailor it to a particular situation or to make sure a person understands exactly what they are agreeing to. And you're right, these they do hallucinate, whether it is a case or a legal proposition as well. So it's in, it's having all the information so that you're able to evaluate the tool properly.
I agree, and that should be in any business, is that you assess the information as it is, and just be able to verify your sources, because it doesn't matter if it's,
Absolutely.
yeah, it doesn't matter if it's legal or if it's, you know in the IT world, there's a lot of avenues. There's like 100 different ways to do a single function, but at the end of the day, you still need to make sure you find that right function. Otherwise, you could potentially mess something up.
Absolutely.
So, if a business owner is growing, but they are still operating reactively,
Mhm.
what do you think is the first legal or operational step that they should take?
I would say just making sure you have a standard set of contracts that you understand. So, a standard set, a standard NDA for various circumstances, a client agreement, the privacy policies on your website, just having a standard set of things that you can pull from in contracting, I think is an important first step for a lot of business owners. And then if you have a business partner, certainly making sure that you have a good partnership agreement in place. And then, kind of next steps as you start to grow. If you're working with contractors, again, standard set of agreements with your contractors and people that you're partnering with in business. And as you grow more, you have employees, making sure offer letters, handbooks, policies. So I would just say kind of having legal documents that are kind of growing as your business is growing.
I think so as well. I personally would also like to see an app that does a legalese to normie type of translations. Like you scan the, the document, it's like, okay, what does this section mean? It's like, oh, okay, cool. Um, that might be a pipe dream. I understand that.
No, I mean, I think that that could be a good use of AI. So, I mean, your lawyer doesn't want to argue with AI because you come back with a bunch of things from chat in terms of what they think it means, but certainly it may be an opportunity for you to get further understanding. Or if you have a lawyer, they should be explaining those things to you.
Yeah, I think that a lot of issues, whether they are legal, business, or even personal, they live and die on communication. And we have so many tools for communicating, and yet somehow we're still all just kind of falling behind. It's so
Very
weird.
true. Very true.
So, Siobhan, I mean, thank you so much. I know that you have a heart out here, so we're going to go ahead and start wrapping this up. But before we do, I'd like to do two things with our guests toward the end. And the
Mhm.
first one is simply, where can people find you?
Absolutely. Our website is the THESJS So the SJS You can email us. It's info at the SJS Our phone number is 202-505-5309. And I am Shavon J. Smith across all social media platforms.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And the second thing that I like to do is for our business owners, founders, or leaders who are watching this, what is one final thought or lesson or even just a piece of advice you want them to walk away with?
I will say, and it's not legal advice, but I will say that having um other people you like a community of people. I think business ownership can be a little bit lonely. It could feel like a solo journey, especially if you are a solopreneur. But certainly finding a community of people that you can that understand your journey, that you can share resources with, that you have a question about your taxes, you need a referral for a lawyer, you need a referral for a banker. So I kind of building a community of people that you can pick up the phone to help you with resources and that you can also pour into as well. I think that makes the journey a lot better, and it makes sure that you have everything you need because you have people that you trust around you to share resources with.
I 100% agree with that. When I started my business, one of the first things I did was I linked up with the Greater Baltimore County Chamber of Commerce.
Yep,
Uh, they have
chambers are
been
great.
Yeah, they have been a great set of people. But that's also one of the reasons why I started this podcast here,
Hmm.
as a way to be able to connect with business leaders like yourself, to be able to show that, hey, I want to build a strong community with each of these interviews. And so, I mean, that's the fact that you agreed to be on here. I'm definitely greatly appreciative of that, and help me build this community for not just for myself, but also for other Baltimore and Maryland businesses that may not necessarily get the visibility that they expect. So again, thank you so much for being a part of that.
Thank you for having me and letting me speak with your community.
All right, awesome. And I would also like to thank you, the audience, for tuning in to Stack and Startup. If you enjoyed this conversation, please make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. You can find us on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts to follow along as we continue to explore business and technology from a different perspective. Lastly, if you want to support these conversations directly, you can become a patron at patreon.com/stack and startup. And until next time, keep yourself legal, keep yourself protected, and we'll see you next time.